Mhm. Hello, everyone. Good evening, and welcome to the second episode of Mind Check, Black Mental Wellness During Rona. Thank you for joining us today. Before we begin, I would like to invite everyone to join the conversation online by using the hashtag MindCheck. If you would like to join the conversation, please do so by sending the question in the comment section of YouTube Live or Facebook Live if you're watching there. Please note to use the YouTube comment section, and you must be signed in to the chat. So let's get started. We've been trained to measure the quality of our daily activities through the lens of productivity. In the face of COVID-19, have you experienced emotional or mental distress in response to a change in productivity? In this webinar, we will discuss 1, the origin and purpose of productivity, 2, how to identify the role of productivity in your life, and 3, strategies to guide quality into daily experiences. First, we're going to begin with a mindfulness exercise led by our guest panelist, Eranisha Hamilton. It is called the Body Scan Exercise, and it's a short but effective mediation guide that guides you through a full body relaxation. It's designed to help you create mindful awareness within your body, enabling you to release tension from your head to your feet.
Hello, everybody. My name is Eranisha Hamilton, founder and CEO of Slick Relax Fit and full-time social entrepreneur. So I deal a lot with work-life balance and balancing in general. And the body scan exercise is a quick touch point to kind of pull it back in when things are feeling kind of everywhere, or if you need grounding. So we can start wherever you're at, finding somewhere comfortable. The most important thing is making sure you have comfortable seating space. And that can look like whatever works for you. So if you're sitting against a wall, or you're sitting in a chair, making sure your posture, your body posture is right. Wherever your glutes are meeting the chair, the ground. Right now I'm sitting on a bed. I have my hips elevated because that's better for my back, for my hips to be higher than my knees. Cross-legged position, but you're more than welcome to extend your legs out in front of you. Again, find that comfortable seated position for you. Knowing you have nowhere to be, you're tapped in with us. Let's take a minute to check in with you. All right, so as you find that comfortable seated space, you can have your eyes open, gently closed or closed, whatever works for you as you find your breath. Not changing it, but just noticing where it lies. If you're on an inhale or an exhale, just bringing the awareness to the breath as you use it to guide you through this body scan today. All right, let's go ahead and empty that breath. Completely exhaling all of the air out. And on your inhales, really trying to pull the air into the belly, the chest, and the throat, filling up with air. And on the exhale, releasing from the throat, the chest, and the belly. As we do this 2 more times, making sure your palms are either placed palm down on your thighs or your knees if you need grounding, or palms facing up towards the sky if you need to feel uplifted. And as we breathe with every exhale, releasing any and all expectations on your mind or your body. And when you're ready, taking your very next inhale as you pull all of the air in on your inhale, aligning the spine to sit up straight and strong, releasing everything out on your exhale, and enjoying that space at the bottom of the breath, taking your last full, good, deep belly breath as you appreciate the time for yourself. As we explore our body for a quick moment, we're going to start at the crown of our head, noticing the space right above our head where our crown chakra lies. And as you breathe, aligning the spine to sit up straight and strong. On the exhales, resting and relaxing the chest and the shoulders. On the inhale, bringing that awareness back to the body as you make any adjustment to find comfort in this seated space. And as we breathe, noticing the tension we may hold in our face as we bring our awareness there. Wanting to breathe love and light into our facial expression with every exhale, releasing any and all tension we may feel. As we travel down the body, noticing our neck, our shoulders, our chest, our arms, noticing our palm, where they may meet the thighs, As you find your inhale, sitting up straight and strong to align the spine. On the exhale, resting and relaxing the chest and the shoulders as we bring that awareness to the belly, the groins and the hips, noticing our glutes and our thighs, noticing our legs and our feet, noticing our toes, where our feet may meet the ground or our thighs. And as we breathe, taking your time, allow yourself to scan back up the body, starting at the toes. And with every inhale, gently guiding your awareness back up through the body, through the midsection, back up to the face, into the crown of the head, and finding your breath for one last moment to have that sense of awareness and where that breath lies, not changing it, but just noticing it. And with every breath, breathing that love and appreciation for this protected time and space to just check in with you. Exiting with releasing on the last exhale, clearing the belly of all your air. And on the inhale, pulling all of the air into the belly, the chest, and the throat. And on the exhale, releasing from the throat, the chest, and the belly. Whenever you're ready, allowing yourself to bring movement into the fingertips and the toes, breathing that awareness and that movement back up through the arms. You can rotate the neck if you need to, clockwise or counterclockwise, rotating the shoulders, taking whatever body movement you need to bring yourself back into attention. You can gently flutter open the eyes. And then remembering you are safe. Thank you. That's the body scan. It is available in my Instagram, link bio, also on YouTube. If you type in Eranisha Hamilton, there's a 4-minute body scan for you guys if you just need to check in with yourself. Oh, you're muted.
Thank you very much, Eranisha. So now I would like to begin with introducing the amazing guests we have with us here today. First, we'll begin with Miss Eranisha Hamilton. Originally from Slidell, Louisiana, she was born to make an impact with a goal of inspiring self-awareness and wellness practices into the lives of 100,000 Black people yearly. Eranisha has worked vigorously to be a voice in the community, create programs that offer education and self-efficacy, and many other tools necessary to uplift and help the people of her culture. As Eranisha grows to achieve her goal of self-made entrepreneurship with 7 streams of income, she has developed a networking organization, SLICK, that aids in helping others in her community reach the same goal. Her passion and persistence are her driving force on creating a world better than the one she was born into. Next, we have Mr. Gary Williams. Gary Williams is the curator of culture. Over the course of the last decade, the award-winning photographer has adjusted his focus to capture the unique moments that bring value to communities and prioritize perspective over commerce. Whether behind the lens or podium, in a boardroom or a dark room, his work earns the right to tell diverse stories, turning a business into a brand. In other words, most brands and companies are reactors. With Gary's eye, they become creators. With a client list that includes Nike, BMW, Timex, and more, the corporate world is taking notice. Quote, culture has many different meanings, but it hinges on authentic experiences within different ethnic groups. We know culture drives, shapes, and informs our world, and without it, we'll all live very bland lives void of unique experiences. In a new media world replete with identity politics, Gary is a renegade who ditches to the politics and focuses on identity. He doesn't take on projects without asking, who is this story about? Who is this story for? And why are we telling it? Authenticity is his portfolio's pedigree. While the creative powerhouse calls creative theory his home and family, his greatest work occurs at home with his family, where he proudly embraces his role as a husband and father. Welcome, Gary. And I am Iwune Wane, licensed psychological associate in Texas and founder of Over Melanin. Over the past 10 years, I have studied psychological experiences and health disparities within minority populations, most specifically the African diaspora, and I provided psychological services within various systems. This includes educational system, health system, and judicial system to minority and systemically marginalized populations. So thank you everyone for joining us. Very excited to have this conversation with you, and I'm looking forward to the input we have from our viewers today. And let's first begin with where we started. What does productivity mean to you? How do you measure it or quantify it?
Use that. Should I start?
Sure.
I didn't know if like Ernisha wanted to like ladies first. But I'll take it. What I think pre-COVID productivity is different than the situation we're in now with COVID, and now not only COVID but all the things that are happening in the world. And so for me, as a parent of a father of a 2-year-old and a 6-month boy, productivity has changed drastically for me. And in this time of COVID, I'm home, my wife's home, we're both working from home, and having to also make sure both of our kids are taken care of, are learning, and are entertained. And so what productivity, whereas before I might have had a more stringent and kind of cadence to my day and my schedule, I have learned in this time to, yes, schedule things, but allow a little bit of fluidity in my schedule, right? And so, and allow for spontaneity in my schedule, because that's what a 2-year-old is, just continuous spontaneity. And so, giving myself space to one, be present for my child or my children and my family, and not necessarily hold to such a strict schedule as maybe I did before when they were either going to daycare or when we were in the office, and I was able to do that. So it's really about giving, again, I think it's about giving yourself grace, and one, understanding that everybody is trying to figure out how to be productive in this situation, right? And everybody's going to handle that differently. And your circumstance, is going to be different from mine. Obviously, everybody, doesn't have kids, and if you're single, it probably looks different than what my structure looks like. So it's more the productivity is more about quality than it is quantity now, right? And so, whereas I'll take 2 hours out of my day, and just try to get as much done that I need to get done in those 2 hours, and then I'll try to take some time to be with my kids, do whatever I need to do for family, whether it's put my kids down for a nap, play with them, or whatever. But really, and then setting expectations, in the workplace with my team members, and then also clients, and just letting them know and being totally honest, like, this is what it is, this is my current situation, and this is how I need to work to be productive, honestly. And so for me, it's really just about setting expectations. One, allowing yourself grace, knowing that every day is going to be different. Especially, again, I keep going back to when you have kids, but every day is literally different. You try to maintain a schedule of some sort, but it just usually never works out that way. Some part of the day ends up being some kind of spontaneous situation. So really allowing yourself to to ebb and flow in and out of your schedule, and give yourself grace.
And one thing I think I took pre and post COVID that really helped me out with this was practice makes progress. Not perfect, but practice makes progress. And I think being productive in reality is a practice. And luckily for me, I was able to implement that practice prior to it. So once I was in it, I was able to kind of like flow with it. And I agree with him with going to the flow. And because I don't have kids and because I don't have certain dependents, I know that do allow me to flow quite easily. I learned through entrepreneurship about having to shift and wear different hats. So it's like, okay, it happens, now you got to shift. And that looks different for everybody, right? So one thing that I implemented that I had to do post-COVID was, okay, I completely shift my schedule in the sense of now I'm a night person. I know I can get up early in the morning. I fully believe the early bird gets the worm. I've done it. I get it. But I'm a night person. I get energy at night. So what I've done post-COVID was I go to sleep at 4 a.m. I start my nighttime ritual at 3 a.m. I'm asleep by 4 a.m. and then I wake up by 9 a.m. because naturally I'm never in the bed past 10. So giving myself the push to get up by 9 and be rolling out the bed, I'll be ready to start my day by 10, and I'm just going from then. And one thing to clarify with that, I'm gonna have to tell people is I'm not up, you know, at late hours watching Netflix and chilling. I'm working. I'm working at the time that people that would have normally got done at 6, 7 a.m. I'm doing it at 2, 3 a.m. So it gets done, and that's how I had to shift for myself to remain productive in this current reality and state of the world. And then my last suggestion for remaining productive is to set goals, like clear goals, smart goals, like not I want to be successful, I want to be rich. I tell people that's an affirmation. What is your goal? What is your detailed goal? I want to be a self-made entrepreneur with a worldly impact and 7 streams of income. It's measurable. Smart goals. Yeah, we could Google smart goals and you could develop a smart goal. And that's what I teach in my network and that's the way to be reality, right? Like into reality, understanding if you're making it to that goal, and if you're not, holding yourself accountable. It ain't nobody's fault but yours. And like he mentioned, get a couple of things in the beginning of the day that you know you want to get done, and then you get it done, and then you flow with the rest of your day. You enjoy it. I love to be in my present. I'm structured enough where I can achieve what I want to achieve for my future, but I'm very tapped in with the present.
Thank you.
That's super good. Sorry, I just want to add on to that. That was amazing. And before I never used to-do lists. Like I would, well, put it this way, I wouldn't write things down. So I would have a mental to-do list, right? And I would end up fumbling that to-do list because I would forget something. But in this COVID situation, and kind of in alignment with your setting smart goals, I have started to write down my to-do list. That way it's visible and I can, reference it throughout the day, but making sure that I set realistic to-do lists, right? Like not putting 20 things on my to-do list for the day. Like what can I realistically get done this Monday? I'm going to put that on my list and then not beating myself up if I don't necessarily knock all of those things out, right? So great point, Arnisha.
And when you mention writing it down, right, we are in a space of understanding our mental capacity right now. We like exhausted because there's so much on our mind, and simply just writing it down gives you permission to just forget about it. Like once you put it on paper, especially if you're organized with that, you'll get back to it. If you get your system where you put it on paper, you get it into your calendar and have it where it's like structured, you can take it out of your mind. Just like, okay, I tell my team all the time, I don't remember nothing. I gotta look at my calendar. There's too much happening. I don't remember.
Thank you to both of you. I agree with everything you said, and I think the trajectory of my productivity looks really similar. In the past, I was extremely future-oriented, and it really started with my childhood where my dad would say, what is something productive you've done today? Something that will prepare you for the future. And I really held on to that and carried that with me into adulthood. And so every day I'm like, what is for the goals that I have? I need to be doing something every day to support those goals, right? And I think there are some advantages to that, but then also some disadvantages is that I'm not present, like you said, Arnisha. I'm constantly a year or two ahead. Either I'm applying to this program or I'm looking for this grant or, preparing myself for a certain occupation, a certain agency, constantly looking forward and not appreciating what is happening in the moment. And in the more recent years, I've had a shift because I realized that it wasn't productive because I wasn't happy, and I was beating myself up if I wasn't accomplishing things. One thing I say about myself is my ambition is a blessing and a curse because it pushes me, right? But then there should be a limit, and I didn't have a limit on that before. And so in view of my productivity, I include not only my professional goals, but my personal goals as well. So if I want to visit a family member or call an elderly family member who doesn't live close to me, see a friend, work out, do some personal reading. Those are things that I'm beginning to work into my schedule. So it's not just about, the profession you want, but who you want to be as well, and making space for all of those. And then to you, Gary, what you said about giving yourself grace, that is something I have accomplished within the past year. Again, the ambition, it's like you can do better, you can push yourself forward, right? But at some point in time, I was just like, if they don't get the email today, they will get it tomorrow, and it's going to be fine. And I also started putting boundaries with my time, and that has helped me stick on schedule too, right? So now most people know, you send me an email, you'll get a response between 48 to 72 hours. Right? Unless it's an emergency, then you call me, then I get back to you. But like, that's where my flexibility comes in for emergencies. But for me, is whatever I've set for the day, I try to stick to that, as well as the personal time I have, as well as, the relaxation time. I try to stick to all those things. And so boundaries is important. Grace is important. And writing things down. Aranisha, I'm with you. I don't remember anything. And if there's one thing I tell my clients, do not depend on your memory. It's not worth it. Write everything down. If it's not in my calendar, if it's not in my daily notebook, it's not happening. And for me, like you said, when you write it down, it's gone. That's one less thing you have to worry about. And for me, in my mind, things seem bigger than what they are. And when I write them down, I realize the task wasn't as big. So that's another coping skill for me. Like, if you get anxious about your to-do list, like write it down and really look at it. It may not be as bad as you think it is. And so those have really helped me. And kind of going into our next question, like, what have you learned about yourself in response to COVID? So I can, jump into it first. One thing I learned about myself is that I am extremely goal-oriented. So if I am not accomplishing something, there's going to be a problem. So it's not just work, but like personal. And when I started transitioning to doing telehealth, working from home, seeing clients, it was a real struggle for me because I just couldn't understand why I wasn't on task or why I wasn't meeting what I wanted to meet. And I had to learn that I am in a different environment, right? I'm in a situation I've never been in before. And I'm not going to respond as I, expected to, and giving myself grace with that, and learning that you don't have to accomplish goals daily to have a good day. There's other ways to have quality in your day. And so if you only rely on your to-do list, right? And let's say that's just not a good day for you, productivity wise, you need to find other ways that still give you quality, where you can still say like, today was a good day, and I feel really blessed for what I have.
And I think for me, I learned about myself, my relationship with books. Like, as an entrepreneur, I'm truly a student of life, and I learn by doing more so than anything. Even in school, growing up, always an A and B student, but when I got into my entrepreneurship, I would try different books, but I would never like complete anything. I would skim through or get to the end of it. But I think through this COVID period, what I've learned about myself is the relationship I have, or I can have, with books, and how to really maximize and use them for research purposes. Because a lot of things that I speak on or I do, I move off of how I feel, not necessarily of research that I done did. So this is how I feel about it. I can express my feelings better than I can express other things. But learning my relationship with books have exposed me to more information, more knowledge, things that have happened before me that I can use and implement so that what I'm doing in the future can be great. So that's been a great learning tool for me over this time.
I think I've learned several things, but I think one of the main things I've learned is that I need my me time. And I say that not because I don't like my family, but I say that because when I was able to get that me time, when I was going into work, and then my kids were at daycare, or whatever the circumstances was, when that schedule was quote unquote normal, I was able to, get my me time in during the day, whether it was a lunch break or something like that. But now, being stuck in the house and always kind of on, it's harder to get those moments, by yourself, to really kind of decompress. And I would want to encourage, I think everybody needs those moments. And that doesn't say that you don't love your family, or you don't love your wife, or you don't love your kids, but it's just about taking care of yourself, and making sure you are good mentally, spiritually, and emotionally, so that you can be present in your household, or to your to your network. And so in this time, and shout out to my wife and then my family members that are here helping and supporting us, but they've been allowing me to, I've started like running. And so that's kind of been my me time. And so I get out for at least like 30 minutes, 45 minutes a day, just running, clears my mind. I'm able to just, be free and be out, and just collect my thoughts, gather myself, right? And release some of that stress or whatever it is through sweating and whatever that is. But that has been something that is really, that I've learned about myself, right? Whereas before I didn't necessarily, I don't say appreciate, but I kind of took it for granted that I was able to, to get this time. But now having, being in quarantine for I don't know how long, it's been really beneficial for me to get out and on these runs or these walks or whatever it is. Sometimes go for drives, but that is something that I realize that I need. I need my me time.
That is important. The saying, you can't pour from an empty cup. And so me time is the time to replenish, and your loved ones as well as your social or professional network will benefit from that. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So how do we deal with the daily nuances of racism, or even what has been happening in media and in our communities over the past week or so, right? So we still have jobs to do, points to make, deadlines to meet, right? And so when we bring in the racial oppression that we deal with often too, like, are you still able to be as productive as you were before? Or do you find that's changed? And if it has changed, how do you navigate that?
I think first off, understanding how you feel about it and what role you play in it is like the first key. So I did a segment this morning for the message of the day, and it's feel how you feel. So how you feel is valid, right? How you feel is how you feel no matter what. And you have to base how you feel off of the knowledge you obtained today. It's not like you're about to go scroll off and then all of these people all of a sudden impact you in a way where, you've done this in this change of thought of mind. Like, you have to identify first how you feel, which some people, I suggest logging off of social media, take a minute to not deal with the projection of the world and what people are putting out there, but log off, understand how you feel about it, and then you can identify what is your role in it being productive for a resolution. And then at the same time, knowing how you feel about it is not validation for your suggestion to the problem being the productive suggestion for reality, right? Like, your feelings is valid, but don't mean what you have to speak on it about is what's going to fix it. Because what we're not tapped into when it comes to the reality of productivity, when it comes to the culture and the issue with racism, is that, we've been fighting it for years and we've been kept in a certain space of it. So it's not fight harder, it's not do this, do that. We've been doing and we've been trying, and it's just getting to a space now with our youth having the access to things like social media to be able to skip the middleman of what the media, CNNs and all these other networks are presenting to us and presenting to the rest of the world, and we're able to just show it right out. And this is what that looks like. So with that being said, like, media has been and is shown to be the issue, and that is where the problem is. So at the same time, people that are on the front line and understanding that those people and the role that they're playing for the productivity and the culture and capturing these things is just as essential as the people role that are not able to be on the front line. But if you're not on the front line and you're not dealing with the racism and the riots and things hands-on, what are you doing? And do you feel like you are on the front line as a leader and as somebody that's not standing up for the culture in that way? So I think, when we talked about this previously, what I had to come into understanding with after talking to y'all is that everybody's role is different, and you have to be tapped into your reality and productivity enough to understand how your role is impactful to the situation. Understand you may not have the resolution, but it does not mean that how you feel about it is not valid. And then look into our leaders. Like, we are the majority, more so I feel, than we are the minority. And if we have that mindset and that understanding, looking towards our leaders and people that are not celebrities, not presidents, they don't speak for the culture, like, but there's real people out here that are speaking for the culture and making an impact hands-on in what they do. And that looks different for everybody.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, yeah, right. Like snap it for you, hit all the points. I think obviously it's been difficult, right? And I'm speaking from personal experience. It's been difficult in the last, I would say since Ahmaud Arbery's murder, um, to really form uh, a sense of normalcy when it comes to productivity, right? So me myself, I've just been really, and I don't want to say since I'm Ahmaud Arbery, we know we've been dealing with this, like Arnisha said, we've been dealing with these things for since the beginning of time, right? And really processing racism and dealing with racism and showing up to these corporate spaces and having to put a face on and put a facade on, put a smile on our face and hide our emotions. We've been doing this, right? And so unfortunately, we have I want to say mastered, but we have come to learn how to cope, or to I would say to hide our feelings to the public or in these spaces, and obviously that's not a good thing, right? And I think we've come a long way in mindfulness as a people, um, and really started to not hide those feelings anymore. And I don't think we should hide those feelings, right? These are valid feelings, and we should be given the grace to feel the way we feel. I love that. Feel how you feel. And that's so important. Like, don't hide that. We are dealing with real trauma, right? And people don't necessarily see what we're dealing with as real trauma. I think you said you might equate like a car accident as real trauma, but this is real trauma as well. We're watching our brothers and sisters be murdered on camera, right? And over and over again. This is not one time, this is not two times, it's not three times. This happens over and over and over again, and we're subject to seeing this. And where some might see this as snuff videos or they might see it as entertainment, we are watching these videos and we are hurting, we are crying, we are trying to figure out how to deal with these things in real time, and then having to show up and work in some aspects, and be expected to produce and be productive and be strong and take on the day. And so I think in this time, what we can do is just be honest with ourselves, one, about how we're feeling, uh, give ourselves permission to feel that way, confront those feelings, deal with those feelings, right? But also make it known how we're feeling to these folks that are expecting us to show up and work and be productive. And that's the only way we're going to really receive empathy or grace, is if we share our feelings, right? Because if we continue to hide them, they're going to just let us hide them. Say, oh, they're strong. They're so strong. But inside we're crying. Inside we're hurting. We're not that strong, right? And part of being strong is being weak, and being vulnerable and confessing that and owning that. Like we need to own all of those emotions if we're going to operate properly in these spaces, right? And authentically in these spaces. So for me, we had a meeting this morning with our team. We do every Monday. And I have a all Black team, women, males, they're just all Black, which I'm very proud of. And so, it's different. I come into this space, or we come into these meetings, and the first thing we do is a mindful check-in. How's everybody doing mentally? Like, what's on your mind? Do you want to speak about it? Speak. If not, that's cool too. But let everybody just really tell how they're feeling, and then we don't judge. Like, if that's how you feel, that's how you feel. This is a safe space. Let's talk about it. How can we support you? Do you need some time off? Are you good to answer emails today? That's how we address things, right? Because one, I understand that's not everybody's space, right? So everybody can't show up in a space where there's all Black people and have these conversations. But I do think there's something in us just letting people know how we're feeling. That way they at least understand that we feel, because there's a I think an undertone that we don't feel, right? That we're just strong and we can take it, and we're resilient, and we'll get through this, and that's true. Trust me, that's true. We are a resilient people, but we also feel, and we deserve to feel how we feel. And they're not going to let us feel how we feel if we continue to hide how we feel. So you go about that any way you feel is appropriate. But I say it's time to stop hiding our emotions. It's time to stop hiding our hurt. It's time to stop hiding our pain. And it's time that we just be real with ourselves and real with other people on what it is and how we're feeling, so that one, they know how to respond, hopefully, and two, again, like I said, it hopefully helps aid that empathy, and really drive true sympathetic, I guess, reactions from individuals.
Thank you for that. And one thing I would like to highlight, like you said, is that like how you feel is how you feel, right? And I think that I encourage people, I'll say that, I encourage people to extend grace to our peers, because everyone doesn't process trauma the same way, and trauma doesn't look the same way in everyone. And so those who are able, who can speak up, and be there, I highly encourage them to do it. And those who need more time to process can do that as well. We have a trauma model in psychology that is developed by Black psychologists with understanding of, descendants of the African diaspora. And they say there is no right or wrong way to respond to trauma. So people who want to go out and yell, go for it. People have to stay home and cry or vent to loved ones, go for it. People who throw themselves into their work, whether it's social work or other work, go for it. It's all about how you manage it. And so normalizing that process for everyone. That it won't always look the same. And, Aranisha, like you said, everyone has a role. Everyone has a role. And every role is important, because we can't forget that racism is a systemic monster. And there's more than one way to defeat a monster. So one way could be, on the streets protesting, right? Another one could be someone who's just collecting all the information and sharing it with everyone, so you know where to go or what to do, right? Another one could be a person in the ivory towers, who is studying everything, putting it into legislation, and speaking to people who are in power. So everyone has a role, and it will always look different, but be mindful that everyone is doing the best that they can do within their capacity. So now let's kind of go into some of the Q&A that we have from our amazing viewers. The first one is, what are some ways employers can help their Black employees during this time? Or any advice on how a Black employee can communicate their mental health needs to their employer during this time?
Ooh, I think it goes back to being open and transparent. Like, and I'm going to equate this to marriage, since I am married, and it's really about communication and making sure that you are communicating, again, your feelings to your boss, and having open dialogue. And I know sometimes that dialogue is not welcome. Sometimes it's hard to have those transparent conversations with, your boss or your colleagues. And I get it, but I think if, whether you want to do it in email or you want to do it in person, find your avenue to which you best communicate with your boss or with your colleagues. But it's about being honest in your communication and letting them know what you're dealing with, how you're dealing with it. If you're not dealing with it great. If it's affecting your productivity, if you need a day just to, not do anything, I think all of that should be communicated, right? Because what happens is we don't communicate it, our productivity slips. Now they're wondering what's going on. If we could have had the conversation up front, then they would hopefully understand and could give you a little bit of grace, give you a day off, lighten your workload, something you can address the situation if it's communicated up front. But if we don't communicate it up front, and down the line something slips or falls through the cracks because you're dealing with this, emotional distress, now they're wondering what's going on, and then I guess you probably have to tell them, come out and then say it. But some of those things can be prevented if you just have the conversation up front. And that's how when I view my marriage with my wife, it's like a lot of times the arguments or the disagreements that we have could have been prevented if we would have communicated up front, right? And so I know that I know that's not easy for everyone. And I know, I don't want to make a blanket statement and say that it's easy to have these conversations with your bosses, because I know that's not across the board. But if you can, I would say find your way of communicating with your boss or your colleagues, and just make sure that they know how you're feeling and know what you need during this time, so that they can hopefully address it and make the proper kind of adjustments for you to be successful.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
And what I've learned over the period of being an entrepreneur is what makes a great entrepreneur great is the ability to create a structure and a system to do business, like in whatever that looks like, in whatever form and capacity. So when I think about employees being able to communicate with their employer on how they feel, we have to identify the environment in which has been set up for us, and then make the decision in which we're going to live in that environment or not. And I know that can be risky for people that depend on that financially for their job situation or whatnot. But then ultimately that's our decision, right? So then you have to create a plan and roadmap your way out of that environment if you don't want to be in it. So when it comes to somebody starting a business, like, myself, and knowing I have a team, I work on people's personal and professional development. So it could get real personal, and then they have to understand when we real professional. So knowing there's a right place and right time for everything. So if you are an employee and you're speaking to your boss, he gonna feel probably disrespected if you stand up in the middle of the conference call like, F this, I'm going home, I'm so fed up, I'm tired, like, and we push ourselves to that limit where we pop, and we see a lot of youth right now popping. That's why they popping off in the streets. But if you are in a more corporate situation and you're dealing with a boss, then you have to understand there's a right place and time, schedule protected time to express how you feel. Some of these companies are setting up calls for their employees. If you're Black and you're in a white company and they do that, it's like Gary mentioned, you have to speak about how you feel, because if you don't, they're gonna think that, oh, they good about it, and that you probably the only example of a Black person. So they like seeing all of this fake news on the media, and like, well, these people are out here thugging it, right? It was what the media portray over, but we got this other Black person here in our company and they're not affected at all. So this must not be how it really is, or how they really feel. So if you're in a situation like that and they schedule protected time in a group collective meeting, even when buku white people on the call and your chest tighten up, you have to communicate through that. You have to breathe through that, get through that, and speak on how you feel. And then if you are a boss, you are employing people, you should be setting up an environment where people feel like they can express themselves and they're comfortable to do that. And if you are working for somebody's business and your their ethics of a business and of a company don't align with you, then you need to be seeking out what's next for you, because you can still be an employee and make the same heights and reaches as an entrepreneur, and not feel like you have to start over like an entrepreneur and create something from the ground up for it to represent what you want it to represent. You can find a company out here that's functioning, you believe in what they believe in, they create protected space for you, you can communicate, express how you feel, and you thrive there. And you go ahead and you franchise that company and you expand for them, and then you have your own business. So you don't have to start over, but you do have to, I think what Gary mentioned is just be transparent in your workplace as you are in your personal spaces. that carries across the board, and keeping in mind there's a right time and place for everything.
I agree with that, and that's something I personally have struggled with. I have no problem speaking up for our Black clients or patients, right, and about the cultural considerations for them. But one thing I haven't done is kind of related to myself, and I think that's something I need to work on more because I am one of the few Black people in the room, or only Black person, right? And so I will have to be a voice and, accepting that responsibility and using it, to the advantage of making sure that they're aware that this is affecting everyone, regardless of where we are in life. So our last question for the Q&A is, it seems like flexibility is an important part in remaining productive with all the major things happening in the world that shift our focus. How can we make ourselves more flexible so that we can shift more peacefully?
So one of the things that I talk about on Wednesdays is Wealthy Wednesdays. And Wealthy Wednesdays, I highlight different types of wealth. So knowing that there's not only one way financially for you to feel wealthy, but there's 6 other ways if you're not financially wealthy for you to feel wealthy. And that feeling then creates more wealth for yourself. But time management is one of those forms of wealth. Really understanding the value of your time. My time is my highest form of currency, my highest value. I've set up protected measures for myself to where, my time can be limited on certain things that is not productive for me. So understanding that time management and how your time, the same way we schedule protected time for work stuff, we should have protected time for taking that bike ride, taking that walk, that run. We schedule protected time about and being there and being consistent and being present and taking that just as serious as we schedule a work meeting or completing an assignment. So, and then being realistic about that, right? So not having this false expectation of what you can get done in a day, but being realistic about the balance that you do need for you to be able to operate.
I don't know if I have anything to say after that. I'm taking notes. That was really good. But I think what I learned is in my life is that there is no spontaneity without a schedule, right? For me. So like I can't have spontaneous moments if I don't know what's on my schedule, right? So and that's for me specifically because obviously I'm in a marriage, I have kids, and so we have somewhat of a schedule that we try to abide by, but at the same time, if I didn't have that schedule or know what was going on here and there, I wouldn't be able to have these spontaneous moments. So for me, it's about, and I understand people probably have much more stringent schedules than I do. But when you have a schedule, it allows you to see the gaps in your day, right? And it allows you to see where I can put some of that protected time or where I can reclaim some of my time back. You know what I'm saying? And so I think having a schedule allows you to see where you can shift and be more flexible in your day, right? And that could be, well, this meeting, maybe I can move that till tomorrow and free up some time for me to do something else that I need to do. So those things. But Ernisha, I mean, you killed that answer.
Another thing I like to add is the Eisenhower Matrix. Have you guys heard of the Eisenhower Matrix?
Yes.
The Eisenhower Matrix has been a lifesaver for me. And that is where you really prioritize what needs to be done. So you have your urgent, important column, not urgent, important column, and then not urgent or important, right? And, if you Google it, it really explains to you how you should navigate that. But I have found that to be most effective for me because sometimes I get overwhelmed with certain things. And then I look at my list, I'm like, that's not even important, right? So kind of focusing your attention back to what you've already identified that needs to be done as soon as possible and is of high importance. That helps with the flexibility as well. Because if I already have done those things for today, then the rest of my day can be kind of fluid because the rest of the things I have to do are not urgent. And I think the other one is reserving your mornings. I found that to be really helpful. I think the day I have most control over is my mornings before anyone can reach me. And so that's when I do my meditation. That's when I do my workouts. That's when I do my personal calls or my journaling, for example. Because what I found that happens later on in the day is I get phone calls, emails, people asking for things, and you had a run planned at 6, but now that's not feasible based on what needs to be done. So another one is just, focusing your morning, because you can actually control that. Okay, any last comments from our amazing panel?
No, I would say just stay tapped into the reality that you're currently living and how that can be productive for you. Utilize goal setting, utilize setting morning and nighttime rituals, feed your body things that charge you up, not weigh you down, and just keep the energy high.
Yeah, I don't have anything else to say, but that's second that. And one, I just want to give a shout out to you all, Black women. I'm on here with amazing Black women, and I don't want to not acknowledge that. And so thank you for your strength and your support in these times. And that is like across the board with everything. I appreciate y'all. I know we as Black men appreciate you all as well. So thank you. And thank you for having me. This was special.
Thank you. Well, special thank you to our guests, Ernisha and Gary. I really appreciate you taking time, protected time, to talk with us today. And if you enjoyed today's webinar, please like, share, subscribe to Austin Justice Coalition on Facebook and YouTube. And please join us for the next Mind Check seminar on Monday, June 15th. We will discuss how to process overwhelming negative information. Thank you, everyone. It's been a pleasure. Take care, be well, and Gary, special shout out to you, Black man. We love you. We love our Black men, and we will always protect and honor you.
I received that. Thank you.
Beautiful.